Hey, what's going on there, folks? Welcome back here to a Wednesday morning. It is the Earthmaster here, first day of May 1st, 2024. It's about 10:12 a.m. here, California time, back in the California time zone. 3.1, the latest earthquake here around the Mediterranean area. We'll get to the earthquake activity here in just a little bit. I want to cover the activity happening there on the big island of Hawaii. Still looking at quite a bit of earthquake activity stirring up overnight in a swarm fashion here just off to the southeast here of the summit region. This is going to be the caldera right in here. A quick view of the Kilauea caldera region shows obviously some volcanic gases seeping through the tiniest of cracks there at the lava lake region of the Kilauea volcano. This has been ongoing here for quite some time, but I don't see any visible eruption at the moment. The latest update was put out here, looks like yesterday, and they just kind of discussed how everything's kicking up, getting earthquake swarms. They mentioned here yesterday that there was 360 earthquakes in the past 24 hours. Now, that was as of yesterday, and then the day before that, it was roughly about the same number in that last 24 hours. So we're coming up on, I'm sure, well over 1,000 earthquakes here at the Kilauea volcano. And what does it all mean? Maybe quite a few of you guys might be asking. Well, that means that we could be seeing an eruption here happen pretty soon with this ongoing earthquake activity, the magma movement, migration of magma. Here is the inflation chart here showing the last 2 days. Now, there's been a little bit of decline in terms of the inflation there across the summit region. But overall, inflation charts here show elevated conditions in the last couple months. In fact, the last couple years here, the highest it's been since about 2018, since that 2018 eruption there that popped over around the Lanali Estates area. So here's the past yearly global positioning system there at the summit. Notice we've seen that huge drop there roughly about February. That was due to a large displacement of magma off to the southwest rift zone from the summit. So since then, we've been going up, and now we're back at the highest peak level seen prior to that displacement of magma. And, of course, this is the highest level seen since the 2018 eruption there at the Kilauea volcano. So things are definitely on the uptick here. Just waiting for some further confirmation here that we're going to see an eruption soon. Right now, earthquake activity definitely kicking up. Let's go zoom in here to the USGS map. Now, they're only showing a handful of earthquakes here. Let me bring back a seismograph station and show you guys. That one's obviously not working, right? That one looks like it's maybe offline because there's nothing showing up here on the graphs. That is not correct. That's the station is not good. This one is accurate. There's definitely some earthquake activity showing up, but it looks like a lack of data. It looks like the system went down here. Let's see, at 1400 UTC time, and it's currently 1715 UTC time. So it's been offline here for about 3 hours. That's not helpful in terms of monitoring the activity out there across the Big Island. So can't really see what's going on from a raw seismograph perspective there. Let's see, I know there's a seismograph hiding in here somewhere. Let's zoom in just a little bit and see if I can spot it. I don't know if all these are offline or just maybe that one. Let's see. This one looks like it is up to date. 1715, there we go. So notice a handful of further earthquakes here in the last 3 hours. And overall, seismic activity has been consistent and elevated. So just, it's one of those things we got to watch pretty closely here as we get, move on in the days ahead. Almost likely scenario is that we're going to see potential fissure activity open up here just south of the summit region, or potentially out here across the southeast rift zone. It just looks that way in terms of what I've seen over the last couple months with the earthquake activity, the GPS displacements, and could see some activity open up out here across this region. It's not always out here at the Lava Lake area. 2018, we've seen it much further out here across the Lanali Estates and away from the summit region. So I think the most likely scenario is going to be that we're going to see it open up outside the summit. Just makes sense with all the ongoing activity out here. So we'll continue to watch that and report back on it. Again, no major change overnight, just consistent earthquake activity out there on the Big Island at the Kilauea Volcano. All right, what do we got here for the West Coast? Let's go ahead and pull up 2.5, see if we got anything popping off here following last night's M flare. Almost an X flare last night. We'll get to space weather here in a little bit. We've seen one more earthquake, 2.7, off the coast there of Northern California at the southern end of the Gorda Plate. That's going to be the plate boundary here between the Gorda Plate, little microplate up north, and the Pacific Plate here to the south. Aside from that, really not seeing anything new in terms of any newer activity. Aside from some small microquakes down here in the Sacramento Valley. Got a little 2.1 earthquake from last night, and I think we got a little more activity stirring up down south here. Really no major swarms. A couple earthquakes there from yesterday on the Brawley seismic zone, and of course, typical movement here in the San Jacinto fault zone and up around the Corona area of SoCal, seeing a 2.8, but aside from that, there's really not a whole lot of uptick going on there across the West Coast for now. Yellowstone National Park, most of these earthquakes here from yesterday, so let's double check. See what we got on today's latest image. Not a whole lot, it looks like. There's wind. That is some wind events out here. You guys see it all across the park, right? It's these darker colors on the seismograph stations at various locations there, indicating a wind event. So since then, what do we got? Anything going on? Couple small, very small, these are not even probably worth mentioning, very small spikes of an earthquake there, probably below a 0.1, not a 1, but a 0.1 magnitude there across the Yellowstone area. So things have quieted down, not really seeing any swarming going on there today compared to what we had seen last week with a little bit of earthquake activity. Texas, Oklahoma area, most of this looks like it's from yesterday, a handful of smaller quakes out here. Around the Pecos, Texas area. Mostly smaller quakes out there today in the oil fields. Across New Jersey, looks like we did have another shaker out there, 2.6. I'm sure folks felt that. These little two-pointers are felt fairly broadly across the region there, across this type of rock that the New Jersey area is on. Millburn area, quite a few other areas being reported or reporting that 2.6 earthquake. Now, not a big earthquake, but we're still seeing some aftershock sequences there. Let's go ahead and check out the last 30 days of earthquake activity, including the, what do we got? Including the 4.8, right? That happened on the 5th of April. So coming up on here about 30 days now since we've seen that decent-sized earthquake out here, shaking things up. Total tally, look at this. 100 and, well, if you want to discredit this one over here, 2.4, we got about 160 earthquakes since that 4.8 earlier back in April. Now the 2.6 we've seen today is probably, well, looks like one of the larger ones as far as aftershocks go in the last couple days. We did have a 2.9 over there in New Jersey. And, there's always possibility here of seeing some further movement in the vicinity. There's quite a few older fault systems out here that do take a little bit more time in accumulating slip and strain. Trying to combine those two words there. Across this area, this region historically has seen some very large earthquakes up north of here, around Boston, down south into the Carolinas. So these earthquakes happen, back in the 1800s, the New Madrid seismic zone. So a couple hundred years have passed, allowing some strain to build up. And, it does take a lot more time to build up strain compared to the West Coast or anywhere else across the world due to these being intraplate fault systems out here. But they're still there, and they're capable of producing some large earthquakes. Now, when we'll see those again is a good question, but definitely have to keep an eye on certain key perspectives of what's going on out here. This earthquake swarm in New Jersey, where the earthquake activity in the last month has been just outside of a major seismically hazard zone there around New York. They've seen some larger earthquake activity out here in the past. Let's check that out here real quick. I'm going to search the earthquake catalog book, and we're just going to pull 4.5 and above up. And, records have been kept, for a little while, right? But not in the year 1000. I just like to put it back there a ways. And we're going to check out the New York area, the seismically hazardous zone out here in the area. There's other areas along the East Coast that can see earthquake activity, but I want to check just specifically this region and show you guys some of these quakes that have taken place here. Now, there's that 4.8 happened last month. The largest one in this magnitude, at least according to the USGS, was a 5.3 back in 1884. 5.1 back in 1783. And a 5.1 in the greater New York area, a 5.1. That would definitely shake things up out there today. So, there's a reason why this area is more confined to a hazard zone compared to, the New Jersey earthquake. That one's away from it. So there's something out here, definitely an older fault system that's capable of producing larger earthquakes than what we've seen there last month. So we just look for little key indicators here. It's possible. Definitely possible we could see things kick back up here again. That's a lot of time that has passed, 1783, since, a big earthquake. I don't, it's hard to say. Maybe this 4.8 was it for another 300 years. I don't know. But that's a ways away from this fault system up here. So we'll keep an eye on this. Either way, it's good to watch for key indicators of what's going on around any major seismically hazardous zone, like the New Madrid seismic zone. If we start seeing a swarm of earthquakes here south of the fault system, or maybe just towards the southern end of the New Madrid, little swarms or big or little swarms like that can be key indicators of maybe some impending larger quake activity. But for now, just a couple smaller earthquakes out here in the last 24 hours, but we'll continue to watch that and report back on it. Let's see what we got here for the global view of things. There's an earthquake there from yesterday into the subduction. Well, it's not quite into the subduction zone. It's away from that, just off the plate boundary, 11 kilometers deep for a 5.1 yesterday. Haven't really seen anything further stirring up out here. Things look like they're quieting down here across this area of the Caribbean plate. Now, that earthquake activity struck following some movement there along the Middle America Trench here a couple days ago. Put the squeeze here on the Caribbean plate. South America region, handful of earthquakes there, deeper ones into the subduction zone of the Peru-Chile Trench. Well underneath this area, we had some deep earthquake activity yesterday. We're getting some further adjustment upstream with a 4.5 early this morning. So continue to watch this area of the Peru-Chile Trench. This deeper activity obviously adding strain across this region upstream. We'll watch for some further activity. Down here across that's the Scotia Plate area. This is way down there. And it's away from the subduction zone here. 5.0, just after midnight. Over the past week, we've seen some earthquakes down here, roughly around this area of the subduction zone of the South Sandwich Trench. That does look like it's adding some further strain out here in this region that we're seeing today. So definitely a little bit of stuff happening down here. We'll have to watch that. These earthquakes over here are relatively shallow. That's indicative there of some surface adjustment going on and overall strain across this area. That's on the map there. I don't think they've seen anything else in that region, specifically in this area, in a little while. So we'll continue to keep an eye on this region. Let's see what's over here. This was from last night in the Croatia area, 4.4. It does look like there's some further activity today in that region. A couple threes and some twos. Minimal movement, though, across the Himalayas. Nepal area, fairly quiet. A couple fours on the opposite side of the plate boundary here within these bins. around the India area. 3.0 way up north, well north of Iceland. Japan area today pretty quiet across the Mariana Trench as well. Got some activity stirring up in Australia, 3.3 out here, and 2.7. New Zealand still getting some deep activity here. These guys just won't stop with the deep activity. Now, yesterday, well, I think it's off the map. Let's go check that out real quick. Yesterday, this area did see a 4-pointer. In fact, a couple earthquakes down here deep into the area. These are not surface quakes, 106 kilometers deep and 88 kilometers deep, the largest one of 4.7. I believe that's associated here with the Hikurangi subduction zone. Now, the plate boundary, of course, sits way off to the east here, but if you think about this on the visual perspective, in a sliced-out image in your mind, if you can, this subduction zone extends well underneath the North Island area to the west. And these deeper earthquakes are indicative there of that subduction zone and the earthquake activity that's happening there today and technically over the last few weeks. Still seeing some threes down there, deeper regions of this area. Definitely something to watch here because New Zealand's seen a lot of deep earthquake activity underneath that region. And very minimal surface adjustment as far as earthquake activity up here across the subduction zone interface level. And this region here, very capable of producing some very large earthquakes, and it's been a little while, so we'll continue to watch that for some movement. There's that earthquake from yesterday. It looks like that's just about ready to drop off the map there. That means that I don't have this set all the way for 24 hours. Right there should be 24 hours. Sometimes this thing adjusts itself, and then also according to how many earthquakes take place on a day, I'll have to adjust that as well. But see that 5.5, that's an older quake. Right about somewhere around there. We'll call it good. All right, let's see, anything else going on? Let's go check out Iceland real quick, see what's up. Way up north here. Got about 40 earthquakes in the last 12 hours. Not a whole lot going on out here for now, aside from the eruption. There is some earthquake activity in a linear fashion from about the eruption area where we're currently seeing the ongoing eruption off towards the southwest, towards Grindavik here. Now, of course, a couple weeks back here, we've seen a decent swarm right outside the northwest side of Grindavik. I think we even had some underneath this area. That's always some concern here because that could be telling us that's displacement of magma in the region. Now, the overall trend here of the Svart-Singi region does show that the area is continuously seeing inflation activity. Here's the inflation chart, vertical displacement. Even with the ongoing eruption here, look at that, still going up and up and up. So you think here, one would think with a release of magma and lava to the surface that we wouldn't really see, this sharply rise up like this, but it is, even with the ongoing eruption. So that tells me right there that we're expecting something much bigger in the area here soon, whether that be another fissure activity opening up within the region or maybe something even further away from the area of the ongoing activity right now. So definitely have to watch that and keep a close eye on it. Space weather activity did see a near X flare yesterday. That's going to be this one right here, an M9.53, pretty decent flare that was on the Earth-facing side of the sun, but directed away from Earth. It did not have an Earth-directed component. With this position over here, anything that does blast off would most likely miss Earth. I'm not even 100% certain if this had a eruptive nature with it, but we'll check it out here in a second. Either way, that sunspot getting much further out there on the western limb. We're left with a couple different sunspots. We have a new one out here on the southeastern limb, looking complex. There is some growth in that, so this may be an area to watch here for some further flaring this week. Also up here, noticing a little bit of intermixing of the magnetic structure in that sunspot. That could be an option as well in terms of some larger flare activity. Overall threat right now, 99% chance for C flare, M flare 55, X flare around 10%. And let's go check out, well, let's see, the auroras. Not a whole lot in the aurora forecast there for now. Let me go check out the... Right, is this it? I got so many space weather. These are just the charts here. Right here. There we go. Want to see what we got in terms of any CMEs headed our way. Earth here in the green, a little bit closer magnetic plasma density view, and this is going to be the velocity, the speed. There was a little CME that shot off. Maybe, just maybe, might get a little glancing blow here in a couple days. Not expecting much. Not a whole lot here on the speed, but there is some density coming in from that CME that was produced. Looks like that is from the one from yesterday, from that near X flare. So it did produce a little eruptive material, some plasma being shot off here in the Earth-directed view. We'll watch that, though. It could be a near miss. Either way, the forecast models here are predicting and forecasting some expected or some forecasted solar weather conditions here in a couple days. We'll definitely check back on that. All right, severe weather out here. Goodness, what a year so far. A lot of tornadoes happening out here in the Oklahoma, Kansas, Iowa area, Texas. Your typical regions out here that see severe weather are definitely getting it. Today's forecast calls for a large, broad area of severe weather concern again, with the tornado potential here in the same areas as yesterday. It looks like a huge 5% zone across western Oklahoma into Texas and up into the Kansas area. I was just out here all last week checking out the weather out here, and goodness, we dodged some major tornadoes, fortunately. Unfortunately, some areas did get hit, and there were some unfortunate fatalities out there as well. So got to be weather aware here at this time of the season. Wind, main threat looks like it's going to be some large damaging hail out there in the hatched area. Could see some large hail, 2-inch diameter or larger, within about 25 miles of a point. Abilene, Midland, Odessa, San Angelo, and the Hutchinson, Kansas area. That's for today. As we look at tomorrow's forecast, for now they only have a marginal risk, and that's probably going to be due to some wind and hail. Looks like there is a 2% zone up into the regions of Missouri and further north. Day 3, a little bit further out, just a lot of thunderstorm activity, it looks like, out here across the region. As far as any long-term outlooks, it does look like these guys are picking up on some type of severe weather event, again, for this area as we head into Day 6. Day 6 is going to be on Monday next week. Today's Wednesday, Monday next week. They're already picking up on another severe pattern out here. And this is very similar to the one that we've seen where those huge tornadoes popped off here around the Omaha area up into Iowa. This area right here seen a lot of tornado potential here last week. It looks like a very similar pattern. We do have a low pressure. It's probably going to kick up because of this low pressure here along the west coast. Right there. Look at that. Oops, did not mean to click on that. We don't have any tornadoes to worry about here in California, although we'll probably have some thunderstorms kicking up here from this low. That's going to be coming in this weekend, dropping temperatures from the 80s back down into the 60s with cold and wet weather. A lot of snow up here as well, so there's obviously some concern of instability with thunderstorm activity out here. That low pressure system is going to work its way east and probably create this severe weather pattern right about here. Look at that, low pressure. Well, the low pressure is way up here, but it's a strong one. It's going to be pulling in all this low-level moisture from the Gulf, and that's what's going to create these potential supercells and probably some big-time tornado threats again. So it's a serious deal, and we'll cover that as we get a little bit closer into Monday. But the pattern, overall pattern throughout May, looks to be quite active out here. So we'll check back on these models when they update them. A little earthquake down there in SoCal right now, Southern California, near Corona. that was a 1.5. Now, most of this activity here is from yesterday, but there is, looks like right now, some further activity stirring up out here. So we'll see what happens here today. All the seismograph stations looking fairly quiet. Not a whole lot of movement happening right now. All right, folks, we'll catch you guys back out here a little bit later tonight. Make sure you guys subscribe. I'm just going through a whole bunch of video here from my trip out there in the Plain States from last week and this weekend. And there was a lot, definitely a lot going on out there. So I got hours and hours of video I have to go through right now, and just doing that off here on the side. I'll be here on the live stream, just off the live stream here, monitoring things. Hope everyone enjoys their Wednesday. Halfway through the work week, Friday, just right around the corner. We can make it pretty easy. We'll catch you guys back out here a little bit later on this evening, folks. Take care.